One of the issues you may have to help the student with is CA, or communication anxiety. Communication anxiety is one of the most common of all fears, and often you'll see articles that say communication anxiety is the #1 fear that people have, even over the fear of death. I'm not sure that's true, but 3/4 of the population say that they have at least a moderate level of this fear. It's certainly one of the main reasons students stop coming to their public speaking classes, and a big reason for many of the students who don't drop out to put off preparing for their speeches and end up getting fairly poor grades in the class. If a student admits to feeling very anxious and fearful about giving speeches, you may want to refer them to the PRPSA, or the Personal Report of Public Speaking Anxiety. All you have to do is type that into Google, and it will come up with the correct website. Then they can take the quiz and find out what their level of anxiety actually is. It might not be as bad as they think it is, or maybe it is as bad as they think it is, but regardless, it's a good thing to know. It's also a really good thing to reassure them that there really isn't anything wrong with them. What they're feeling is common, but there are also ways to control and moderate communication anxiety. They just need to be committed to understanding and dealing with it instead of letting it overwhelm them. There are lots of reasons why people experience communication anxiety. Some of them are listed here. It could be a learned response, the result of some bad speaking experience in school, or if they were shy as a child, then had a bad experience speaking, it could have made a lasting impression and given them the belief that speaking in public was something to be avoided. If the student admits to being a perfectionist, then the root of this fear could lie in their belief that the speech may fail to live up to their own or to the audience's expectations. Thoughts of negative evaluation and failure can overwhelm a student to the point where they are simply afraid to try. They also might see public speaking as a performance and put it in the same light as acting. Then, again, they feel their performance must be flawless and set themselves up so that the least little mistake makes them feel like a failure. The one thing that actually might be the case is that they may lack public speaking skills. So, in this case, their fear is based on the fear of the unknown. If you don't know how to do something, chances are pretty much 50-50 that you'll mess it up somehow. Fortunately, this is the one reason that can be easily fixed. The more practice they have with speaking in public, the more they'll know how to do it. Experience is always the best teacher. Finally, situational aspects may play a part. For example, a student might be perfectly fine giving information to a small group of people, but when they find out there's going to be 100 people in the audience, then they freak out. Or an audience of their peers may make them more nervous than an audience of family and acquaintances. So as you can see, there are any number of reasons why people become nervous when preparing and delivering a speech. Communication anxiety is common because it's natural. It's a natural response to a frightening situation. This response is called the fight, freeze, flight response, and it has helped us survive over the millennia because when we perceive something that we believe may harm us, excessive amounts of hormones like adrenaline and cortisol are pumped through our bodies, helping us to quickly respond by either lashing out, freezing, or running away. Those actions may indeed save our lives if a criminal is trying to hurt us. However, when it comes to public speaking, our bodies really can't tell the difference between a criminal who wants to hurt us and an audience. Our minds may automatically perceive both as being harmful, and our body responds in much the same way. We can't punch the audience in the face, we can't just stand there and stare at them, and we can't run away. So all that energy has to go somewhere. This list of symptoms is the way our bodies tend to respond instead. Explaining these things to a student can really help them understand why their body and mind seem to have a mind of their own, so to speak, in a public speaking situation. Assuring them that the audience is not their enemy and that their reaction, while understandable, isn't really helpful in that particular situation, can put things into perspective for them. Because communication anxiety can be so pervasive, it has the potential to affect every area of a student's life. The stress that is caused can add to the general stress that students already feel, making it simply one more thing for them to worry about. because they fear the feelings that they are inevitably going to feel when giving the speech, they may actually put off preparing for it, which doesn't help in the end. But in the short term, they don't have to think about it. And it certainly affects their behavior during the speech, causing them to fidget, have brain freeze, lose their place, don't look the audience in the eye, and any number of behaviors. Then, of course, afterward, they may chastise or second-guess themselves. It's no wonder that so many students withdraw from public speaking classes or simply stop going and fail the class. As a tutor, you will undoubtedly run into students who admit to being afraid. As I said before, assure them that it isn't unusual and that they're not alone in that fear. You will, however, need to give them a dose of reality. Let them know that the best and most effective way to overcome or at least alleviate communication anxiety is to make the commitment to go to class, keep up with the assignments, and most importantly, schedule adequate time to prepare and practice their speech. A hint: a student should spend at least 1 to 2 hours in preparation for every minute of the speech. So it should take between 5 to 10 hours altogether to put together and practice a 5-minute speech. Now, that whole 10 hours doesn't need to be done in one sitting. It should be spread out over several days. Another thing you can ask them is, what are you worried about in this speech? And have them verbalize those things. They may say things like, I'm afraid I'll look stupid, or I'm afraid I'll forget what I was going to say. Ask them how they can not look stupid and not forget what they are going to say. And the answers to that will likely be, I should know what I'm talking about. I should have good speaking notes. I should practice with those speaking notes. So help them see that with good preparation and practice, those fears will mostly end up being irrational. Have them come up with positive things to say when they start thinking those negative thoughts, such as, I'm really working hard to do a good job, and I know my speech is going to be good when I get up and deliver it. Let the student know that there are things that they can and should do outside of actual speech preparation that will help them relax before the speech. Meditation, taking slow, deep breaths, and doing some self-massage in their shoulders and neck are great stress relievers. Also, they can take a few minutes and do a mental rehearsal, where they sit quietly and imagine giving their speech. Obviously, they also need to actually rehearse it. They can't substitute mental rehearsal for real rehearsal, but that's a great technique to help them see themselves succeeding as a speaker. Finally, let the student know that while overwhelming communication anxiety can be problematic, having some controlled nervousness is actually a very good thing. Actors and other performers have long understood that if they feel a little bit of fear, that's going to give their performance a little extra spark. So they rely on that nervousness to energize them. The best thing that you can do as a tutor in the end is to be empathetic. Tell them that you know how they feel, but let them know that the more speaking experiences they have, the better they're going to be at speaking. It's possible they may never totally overcome their anxiety, but they are going to come to understand themselves and how they can be at their very best in front of an audience.